Hi everyone, it's Heidi from flutterbyheidi.wordpress.com, back again with another Sunday scoring project, and this time it's a masculine card which I've used the Nailed It stamp set and the Build It framelits to do, and you'll see, to all intents and purposes, it looks like a fairly ordinary card, but when you lift this flap up here you can see it says Happy Father's Day. So a little bit of an interactive card for you, and I'll show you how to make it. So to start off with, you're going to need your card base, which is 11.5 by 4 inches, and you'll see I've just scored it in half here to make our card base. That's at 5 3/4, and then I've cut a piece of card for the lining, which is 5.5 by 3 3/4. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually to stamp that in smoky slate with our screws and our nails. So all I've done is just done those. And with some, I think you call them tacks in America, as a bit of fun. And again, stamping off, and then that's then space to write your sentiment. So that's the inner part of our card, so we just need to stick that into place. Like so. And by lining the card, it means that when you're using dark card, you haven't got to worry then about whether the pen will show up. And also it means if you make a mistake, you can always put a fresh piece of card in. So that's our card base. Now to make our front here, we're going to need 4 pieces of cardstock. We're going to need 2 pieces of basic black, and the basic black panels I've got here. And those are 3 7/8 by 3 3/4. And 3 7/8 by 2 1/2. So those are going to sit on there like so. So keep those to one side, because you're then going to need 2 pieces of cardstock which you're then going to emboss. So the top piece is 3 3/4 by 3 5/8, and you'll see I've already embossed that one here, but don't worry, I'm going to show you how to get that lovely textured effect on your cardstock as well. So that's our first piece, and then our second piece is 3 3/4 by 3 5/8. So this one is 2 3/8 by 3 3/4, apologies, and this one is 3 3/4 by 3 5/8, and you can see it just creates a little narrow border here. Now what we're going to use is one of these, it's the new textured impressions, dynamic textured impressions, and it's a really thick embossing folder with lots of texture on it. And the way you get that to work best of all is by taking a spritzer bottle or a stamping spritzer, and you're going to literally squirt in the air just 2 or 3 times so that it is just barely damp. You don't want it to be soaking wet because you don't want your card to curl. Then what you do is pop that into your folder, and obviously you can see through your folders, so you can line that up as well. Pop that through your Big Shot, and you will end up with a piece of cardstock that looks like this. When you use your Big Shot, don't forget you just need your base plate and your single cutting plate, because the folder is so thick. So now again, all we need to do is layer that one up. Okay, like so. And then we're going to pop that onto our card front, which I've got here, but rather than using dimensionals, I'm going to use the great strips that we've got, which are used for shaker cards, these ones here. And I'm just going to pop some, check which way it goes onto your card first. Okay, so it's that way. I'm going to pop some down the bottom half of that only. And the reason for that is because you need to leave space for your mechanism. So if we pop a strip up the side here, another one on the opposite side, and then a piece across the bottom. so. And obviously because we're not, it helps if you take the backing paper off. We're not doing a shaker card, so it doesn't matter whether we've got slight gaps on there or it's not entirely straight. So just pop that onto the front there, just gently for the moment, because we're going to need to lift it off again in a second. What you then need to do is pop your second one on top, and you need to mark where your hole is going to be. So gently mark on your top one, and I use a stamping pierce mat to go through that, and then literally once you've got it lined up, just make a little mark and then bring in, and I use stamping pierce mat, or I use one of the blocks, and just pop that through. Then what you need now is a brad. I'm using some Stampin' Up brads because I happen to have some left over. We don't do brads, but they are, you know, available all over the place, so you really don't have to worry about, apologies for that noise, about what brad you use, as long as it's a nice neat one that just opens out on the back there, and that gives us our mechanism like so. Okay, so that's how the mechanism works. I'm actually not going to attach it together just yet because we need to put our other pieces on the back here. So the next stage is for us to create this part here. So you need to stamp, and I'm going to use Delightful Dijon ink, like so. Then you just use the hexagon die that comes with the set, and line that up, and this is where you'll find, put that away, this is where you'll find a magnetic plate useful, because you can pop it on there and then put it on your magnetic plate, and you'll find that when it comes out you get a nice border on it like so. So pop our die back in the packet, because that's my favourite trick, to lose those. And what you now need is a strip of card, and this is again the Delightful Dijon card, and I've lost my measurements. Okay, anyway, it is 4 inches by 1 inch long, and we're going to attach that, if you look at our original card, sideways on to it. And what I did on my original one, you can see here, is actually layered this up onto a piece of Delightful Dijon. I think a layer often just gives that finishing touch to your cards, and it's quite easy to do a layer when you're using very geometric shapes as I am here. So all you need is to take a small piece of your Delightful Dijon cardstock. I'm just using an offcut here, and I'm going to glue it in place and then just freehand cut around it. So what I usually do is I line it up on one edge against a straight edge, because it just makes life easier, and then I just come in with my snips and just cut all the way around, leaving a narrow border. And obviously you can do this with any shape, but obviously it is easier with these kind of geometric shapes. So there's our Happy Father's Day. We're then going to attach that just with some snail onto the end there, and I'm just going to use my grid paper to help me line that up. And then I'm going to use some more of our sticky strip that we used a minute ago, just to lift that away from the back of our top mechanism. So if we bring our top mechanism in here, what we're going to be doing is lining that up, and if you want to have it a little bit closer you can, and we just trim away the excess when we're ready. So just a couple of strips of that. Decide where it's going to be. I'm going to have it quite close in. Obviously what I've done is I haven't come down quite as far as I did on the other one. Trim that away, and then you can pop in and pop the mechanism together. And that will now open up, and because we haven't come all the way down on our side pieces, that will easily go in and out. And all that remains to do now is for us to create the rest of our decoration on this. And again, to help you, or to speed up the video, what I've done is I have already made some of these and actually stamped and die cut them out. So I've stamped on Smoky Slate card, and again in Smoky Slate on Delightful Dijon, and then I've used the dies to cut each of those out. So we've got all of our pieces here. And then what I do is, to create a bit of dimension, you can either come in with a marker or with an aqua painter or a paintbrush, whichever suits you, and then just paint using the top of our ink pad. And obviously we've got some, the way we do this is by squeezing very gently and then opening it up, and do the same with our Smoky Slate. Then we come in either with a blender pen or an aqua painter, and I'm going to show you using a blender pen this time. So you just come in and just add some shadows around where it's going to be visible. Like so. And you can see quite often where there's already kind of an indicator of a shadow. And the blender pen makes that really easy to do. Just adds that little bit more dimension to it. As you can see here, so I'm doing the handle there, which is about to be covered up. That's a really daft thing to do. Now these pens are double-ended, so that means that if you're doing two colours as I am here, then that's fine, because you can just literally wipe it off on a scrap bit of paper until it runs clear, like so, and then you know it's safe to use. Or use the other end, which is what I'm going to do here with the Delightful Dijon. So I'm going to just come in with the Delightful Dijon, and I'm going to come in on the inside of these, because obviously being sort of recessed, they're the ones that are going to be slightly darker. And the lovely thing about blender pens is that you're not making your cardstock too wet either. So again, just come around the inside of the handle here, gives it a bit of dimension, and those. And then finally our handle. There. So once those are coloured, all that remains to do is to just attach those, and you can either use some wet glue if you want to, but it's just as easy if you're confident with your snail, and just pop those in. And as I say, just by adding that bit of colour onto the front of those, it really makes them pop, and gives it a great load of dimension. And talking of dimension, obviously the next thing to do is to use our dimensionals to layer those up. And as I often do, I'm going to use some sort of half dimensionals and some of the little pieces, as well as full dimensionals. So the first thing I do is I do my larger pieces first, so you can get that centred. So I'm going to put my saw on that one. Now again, this one is actually quite narrow in places, so this is where I'm going to use some of my edge pieces from my dimensionals, just to fit in there. Or what you can always do is, if you run out of edge pieces, you can obviously just cut those in half, and that's why I always work from the edge of my dimensionals. And then a screwdriver, and this is where we're going to need to use some of our little tiny pieces. Obviously, I'm using these rather than my sticky shaker strip, because they are slightly thicker, the shaker strip, so you want to keep those the same dimension lifted up. It's always more difficult to get the backings off these when you're on video. So there's our screwdriver, and then finally we'll put our spanner in place. And there we have a great Father's Day card with a bit of interaction saying Happy Father's Day. And our final finishing touch is to add in one of these great embellishments from the same set, which you've got here. I've just got half a packet which I've trimmed down here, and I'm literally just going to, that's got a really good sticky dot on it, I'm just going to press that down on there to add the finishing touch to our project. I hope you enjoy making that. Come back and see me again soon for another Sunday scoring project, where we'll look at more fancy fold cards and hopefully make them easy for you to make. I hope you've enjoyed it. Come back and see me soon, and if you need any supplies, visit my Stampin' Up shop. Details are in my description bar below, or pop onto my blog and there's a link there. Bye for now.